Worrying stole years I'll never get back. If you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing and liking the video. It truly helps the channel grow and continue to create contents like this. In my younger years, I thought worry was a form of love. If I worried enough, maybe I could prevent the bad thing. If I stayed tense, maybe I could stay ready. I treated my mind like a guard dog, always alert, always pacing, teeth out, because I believed danger was the price of being responsible. At 89, I can say it plainly, worrying stole years I'll never get back. Not days. Years. Whole seasons that I lived only halfway, because part of me was always standing in an imagined future, bracing for impact. I was there in body, but not in peace. I sat at dinner tables while my thoughts sprinted ahead. I held my children while my mind rehearsed disasters. I drove to work gripping the steering wheel as if anxiety could keep the road from changing. No one teaches you that worry has a sound. It's a low hum behind everything, like an old refrigerator in the next room. You get used to it. You start believing that silence would be unsafe. So you keep the hum going, even when nothing is actually wrong. I remember being 35 and waking up at 3 in the morning, the house dark and still. I could hear my wife's breathing beside me, slow, trusting, and it should have comforted me. Instead, my mind started counting. Bills. Deadlines. A comment my boss made. A strange ache in my side. A news story about layoffs. I turned each thought over like a stone, looking for cracks. Then I got up and went to the kitchen and stared out the window as if I could see the future in the streetlight. The future never showed itself. Only my own reflection, tired eyes, jaw clenched, shoulders pulled up like armor. Back then I called it being driven. I called it being prepared. I called it caring. Now I see it was a kind of addiction, the feeling that if I could anticipate pain, I could avoid it. But anticipation isn't avoidance. It's pre-suffering. That's the cruel math of anxiety. You pay the emotional cost upfront, and then life charges you again if the thing actually happens. And most of the time, the thing never happens. You suffer twice, or you suffer once for nothing, and you don't get refunded. If you want proof, I'll give you a simple inventory. I worried I'd be fired. I wasn't. I worried my kids would hate me for my mistakes. They didn't. I worried we'd never have enough money. We made it. I worried about every cough, every headache, every headline. I worried about storms that passed around us like wind around a house. Meanwhile, the real storms, the ones that did arrive, showed up without appointment. Worry didn't warn me. Worry didn't protect me. Worry just kept me from enjoying the calm between the waves. I had a friend named Lenny, a man with a laugh that could fill a room. He worked hard, raised 3 kids, and carried anxiety like a backpack he never set down. One day, in our 70s, we were sitting on a bench watching pigeons fight over crumbs, and he said, "You ever think about how much time we wasted being scared?" I shrugged. "That's life, isn't it?" He shook his head and looked at me as if I'd said something tragic. "No," he said. "That's not life. That's what we did to life." That sentence followed me home. It sat in the corner of my mind like a quiet witness. And once you hear the truth, you start noticing where it's been hiding. You notice how worry makes you miss what is right in front of you. A child's joke. A sunset. The warmth of a hand in yours. Worry pulls your attention away like a tide. It convinces you that the most important moment is always the next one, because the next one might hurt. So you keep leaning forward braced, and you forget to stand where you are. I think about my daughter at 12, sitting at the kitchen counter eating an apple, telling me about school. She was describing a teacher she liked, her eyes bright with the kind of enthusiasm that only children have. I nodded, but I was only half listening. I was thinking about a meeting the next day, a possible reorganization, the rumor that the company was struggling. She stopped mid-sentence and said, "Dad, are you even here?" I laughed it off. "Of course I'm here." She looked at me for a long moment, then said softly, "You're here, but you're not here." I didn't know how to respond. I felt accused, even though she wasn't accusing me. She was just naming the truth. And like most truths, it stung because it was accurate. I wish I could tell you that after that moment I changed overnight. I didn't. Worry is stubborn. It has roots. Sometimes it grows out of love. Sometimes out of childhood. Sometimes out of trauma, or control, or the simple habit of living in a world that feels unstable. What I can tell you is this: you can learn to stop feeding it. The first lesson is to notice that worry is not the same as responsibility. Responsibility says, "What action can I take?" Worry says, "What horror can I imagine?" Responsibility leads to a phone call, a plan, a budget, a conversation. Worry leads to loops. Worry leads to insomnia. Worry leads to being exhausted before the day even begins. The second lesson is to accept that uncertainty is not a personal failure. Life is uncertain. That's not a flaw in your strategy, it's the nature of being alive. You can reduce risk, but you cannot eliminate it. Trying to eliminate it will turn you into a tense, vigilant person who forgets how to breathe. The third lesson is to come back to your senses. Anxiety lives in the future. Peace lives in the body. The simplest way I know to return is to name what you can feel: the chair under you, the warmth of a mug, the sound of rain, the weight of your feet on the ground. It sounds small because it is small. Small is where you live. When I started practicing that, I realized how rarely I had actually been present. I had been standing in today while living in tomorrow. And tomorrow is a hungry place. Tomorrow always has another worry waiting. One afternoon, after I'd retired, I was walking slowly through my neighborhood. Leaves were falling, spinning like little coins. I realized I hadn't felt that kind of quiet in my chest in decades. Not because my life was perfect, because it wasn't, but because my mind wasn't wrestling with ghosts. I was simply walking. I was simply alive. And it hit me like grief: I could have had more of this. That's when I understood the real cost of worry. It doesn't just make you miserable. It makes you absent. It steals your days while leaving you with the illusion that you're doing something useful. In the next part, I'll tell you about the moment I finally learned to separate what might happen from what is happening, and how that simple separation gave me my life back, one breath at a time. I used to believe the worriers were the wise ones. In my family, the calm people were called careless. The anxious ones were called realists. My mother kept a running list of what could go wrong: weather, money, illness, the tone of a letter from the bank. I watched her pace with a dish towel in her hands, wiping the same counter again and again as if scrubbing could keep fate away. I inherited that pacing. The strange thing is that worry can look like competence. You arrive early. You double-check. You anticipate questions. People praise you for being thorough, and you confuse praise with peace. But inside, you feel like a glass that's always about to tip. The body can live like that for years. It can even perform. But the nervous system never forgets. I found that out the first time my doctor said, "Your blood pressure is too high." I laughed because I felt fine. That's what makes it dangerous. Worry is a slow leak. It doesn't always hurt at first, it just drains you, quietly, day by day. So I started practicing one small rule: if I can't act on the thought right now, I don't get to rehearse it. Either do something, make the call, write the note, set the reminder, or I let the thought pass like a train I don't have to board. At first, I boarded every train. After a while, I learned to watch them go by. And I learned to ask a gentler question then. What if? I learned to ask, what is true in this moment? In this moment, my feet are on the ground. In this moment, the people I love are in the next room. In this moment, I am breathing. Worry hates that question because it shrinks the stage. The present moment is plain, and that plainness is a relief. If you recognize yourself in my old habits, don't shame yourself. Worry often began as an attempt to stay safe. Thank it for what it tried to do, and then retire it from the job. Ordinary days are where love lives, and ordinary days are the ones worry will steal if you let it. So tonight, when your mind starts building a future you can't live in yet, try something simple. Name 5 things you can see. Let your shoulders drop a fraction. Remind yourself. I am here. I am safe enough for this moment. Then return to the room you're actually in, the room where your real life is waiting. I remember the first time I caught myself smiling at nothing, just sunlight on the table, without immediately checking for the catch. That was new. Worry had trained me to look for the hidden problem in every good moment. Learning to accept joy without suspicion felt like learning a new language, slow and awkward, but real. And when hard moments did arrive, I handled them better with a rested mind than I ever did with a panicked one. Calm didn't make me careless. Calm made me clear more than I knew. That separation I mentioned, between what might happen and what is happening, sounds simple until you try to live it. Worry has a talent for disguises. It puts on the costume of planning, of caring, of vigilance. It says, if you stop thinking about this, you'll be irresponsible. So you keep thinking, and the mind becomes a room with the same argument playing on repeat. I learned to interrupt that loop with a question. Is this a problem I'm living, or a problem I'm imagining? If it was real, I would take a step. If it was imagined, I would practice letting it be unfinished. That was hard for me because I loved closure. I wanted the clean ending, the certainty, the guarantee. But life doesn't hand out guarantees. Life hands out moments, and then it moves on. The best skill I ever learned wasn't control. It was tolerance for not knowing. There was a season when my worry got so loud it started to show up in my body. My stomach would tighten before meetings. My shoulders stayed raised even in the shower. I'd lie in bed and feel my heart knocking, not because it was failing, but because it was tired of being chased. I finally sat with a counselor, an older man with kind eyes who didn't let me perform. I told him my fears, rapid fire, like I was dumping a box of nails on a table. He listened, then said, "You're trying to think your way into safety." I nodded. He said, "Safety isn't a thought. It's an experience." That changed everything for me. Because worry is mostly thought. It's pictures, predictions, rehearsals. If safety is an experience, then I needed practices that lived in the body and the day, not in my head. So I started building small experiences of safety. I took slow breaths on purpose. I walked without headphones and let the world be larger than my fear. I sat with discomfort without immediately solving it. I learned to notice the first spark of anxiety, the moment it tried to hijack the whole afternoon, and I named it. This is worry. Naming it made it smaller. It turned the monster into weather. And I started doing something almost embarrassingly practical. I scheduled a daily worry window. 15 minutes. Not all day. If a worry showed up at noon, I would say, "Not now. I'll meet you at 5. Then at 5, I'd sit with a notebook and write the worries down, one by one. Most of them looked ridiculous on paper. Some were legitimate. For those, I wrote one next step. One phone call. One appointment. One conversation. Then I closed the notebook. Worry hates boundaries. Boundaries are medicine. The other practice was gratitude, but not the sugary kind. The honest kind. I would list 3 ordinary things that were true right now: warm food, a friend who answered, sunlight through curtains, a body that carried me to the sink. Gratitude anchored me to what was real, not what was feared. I remember the first time I used these tools during an actual crisis. My son called and said his car had skidded in the rain. He was shaken, but unhurt. The old me would have spiraled for days, replaying the accident, imagining funerals, scolding myself for not preventing it. That day, I felt the surge of panic, my chest tightening, and I did the new thing. I breathed. I asked, "What is happening?" What was happening was this: my son was alive, talking to me. The car was dented. Insurance existed. People were already helping him pull to the shoulder. A tow truck was on the way. The future, my mind wanted to sprint into, wasn't the truth. The truth was manageable. The truth had steps. I stayed with him on the phone until his breathing slowed, and when we hung up I noticed something. My love had made me present, not panicked. That was new. That night I realized something important. Worry doesn't love you. It only pretends to. It promises protection, but it delivers exhaustion. It takes your attention, the most precious thing you have, and spends it on stories that aren't real. If you want to reclaim your time, start by noticing how often your mind treats fear as a duty. You don't owe fear your whole day. You can acknowledge it without obeying it. I also learned to be careful about the inputs I fed my mind. When I watched the news late at night, my worry grew teeth. When I scrolled until my eyes burned, my head filled with other people's emergencies. I began to choose my attention the way I chose my food. Not to hide from reality, but to avoid poisoning myself with constant alarm. One winter, I visited a friend in hospice. His room was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels holy. He was thin, but his eyes were clear. We talked slowly, the way you do when you both understand there isn't any need to impress. At one point he said, "You know what's funny? I spent 40 years worrying about dying. Now that I'm actually doing it, I wish I'd used those years for living." He smiled, then added, "I thought worry was love. It was just fear wearing a suit." When I left, snow was falling in fat, soft flakes. I stood outside for a moment and let them land on my coat. I didn't rush to the car. I didn't check my phone. I just watched the streetlights soften the white air. I remember thinking, this is what worry stole, simple minutes that don't need permission. I remember an afternoon long ago when my wife and I were driving to a lake. The kids were in the back seat, singing off-key, and the sun kept flashing through the trees like a strobe. It should have been a perfect little memory. Instead, I spent the whole drive worrying about a project that might go wrong. I was so caught up in imaginary trouble that when we arrived, the kids ran to the water and my wife turned to me and said, "Come on." I said, "In a minute," meaning, let me solve this in my head first. I sat on the blanket with my shoes on, staring at the horizon while everyone else splashed and laughed. The lake was right there, glittering, and I was miles away in my head. Later that night, my daughter, small then, hair still damp, said, "Dad, you didn't swim?" I gave a tired excuse. She shrugged and said, "It was fun." That was the punchline. Fun was available, and I had refused it in exchange for fear. That's when I started using a simple phrase. Not now. Not now, brain. Not now, story. Not now, rehearsal. I can return to you later if I truly need to, but you don't get to eat this hour. Saying, not now, doesn't deny reality, it defends your attention. And attention, I've learned, is the one resource you can't replenish once it's spent. After that, I tried to earn my joy back with small choices, one swim, one walk, one laugh, before my mind could steal them again. So here is my gentle challenge to you, if you're a worrier like I was. Practice living in the part of life that is actually happening. When your mind jumps ahead, bring it back with kindness. Not force. Kindness. Say, "Thank you, mind, but we're here." Then do one present thing. Wash a dish and feel the warm water. Step outside and feel the air. Call someone you love and listen to their voice without rushing. Put your hand on your chest and notice you are still here. If you need a structure, try this. 3 questions I keep on a small card near my chair. What is happening right now? What is the next kind step I can take? What can I let go of for the next hour? Those questions are not magic. They are anchors. They stop the mind from running an entire movie and force it to live in the next scene only. And when the what if returns, as it will, treat it like a child tugging your sleeve. You don't have to shove the child away. You can kneel down, acknowledge it, and guide it gently back to safety. "I hear you," you can say. "But we're okay for this moment." I wish I'd learned this earlier, because worry didn't just steal peace. It stole color. It dulled the days. It made good news feel temporary, and bad news feel inevitable. It made my shoulders hard. It made my face tight. It made me less patient with the people I loved, because I was already tired from fighting imaginary fires. And it stole time with my own mind. I could have used those hours to read, to create, to sit with silence, to pray, to walk, to laugh, to do nothing at all and feel no guilt. Doing nothing without guilt is a skill, and it is one of the sweetest freedoms of aging, if you don't arrive exhausted. So here's the last truth I'll leave you with tonight: bad things will happen sometimes. You will be disappointed. You will lose people. Your plans will crack. That's part of being human. But you don't have to move into the disaster before it arrives. You can wait for reality to knock. Most of the time, it never does. Live in the day you're given. Drink your coffee while it's hot. Notice the face across from you. Feel the ordinary miracle of breath. Let worry be what it is, a habit of the mind, not a prophecy. Over time, those small returns add up. They don't eliminate hardship. They don't guarantee safety. But they give you your life back in the only form life arrives: this moment, and then this one, and then this one. And when you reach my age, you'll be grateful, not for a perfect record of calm, but for all the ordinary days you didn't lose to imagined disasters. You'll be grateful for the laughter you didn't postpone, the sunsets you actually saw, the conversations you truly heard. Because in the end, the greatest tragedy isn't that bad things happen. The greatest tragedy is living as if they already have.